special guest on Locked Up Sports. We don't do too much gambling on here, but I know with the Final Four coming up and everything going on with baseball and NBA about to hit the playoffs, the NHL about to hit the playoffs, we're going to be joined by a special guest here from On the Line, presented by Crosscheck Media on the Biz Talk Today TV network. We're joined by Jo Madden. Jo, tell us a little bit about yourself. How you doing? Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on your show. I'm Jo Madden. You can find me on all social media at Jo Madden Sports. And like you said, I've got the new show, Madden on the Line, presented by Crosscheck Media. It is a lot of fun. We're going over money movers every day. We roll Mondays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So got a show later today. It's always a lot of fun. Great guests coming on there as well.
I know when it comes to gambling, they'll bet opposite that I bet. I feel like I know too much about sports sometimes to gamble because, with the lines and everything and how they get it so perfect. You do well, obviously. You on shows and everything. What's your formula to picking winners? How do you do it? Do you do research into games and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a ton of research. It's not just looking at and flipping a coin which team is going to win. And there are some games out there that I completely stay off because it is a coin flip depending on how those teams come out. But it is a ton of research. And one thing I find that really helps me is look at the lines after you put your predictions. So I go into a matchup looking at those teams and where I think who has the edge and what I think the line is going to be. When I see a difference between what the books have and what I have, that's where I find my edge, and that determines where I'm going to bet on those games. So if I have a higher total than expected, I'm going to go in on the over because of the lines that I already predicted out there, and vice versa with that under. And same for the sides. If I think one team has an edge, and it's my favorite kind of bet, I think one team has an edge and the books are putting them as a dog, then I'm rolling in there on that team heavy on the money line.
Yeah, I know. I have a buddy who's a pretty heavy gambler, and he loves it, and he does it all the time. It would don't get me. I couldn't stomach the bets that he makes, but when he does it, he says he doesn't even look a lot at the teams and stuff. He looks at the lines and the way the line moves from when it gets set to when it moves to another. Is that what you think is probably the best bet?
Oh, it's fantastic to look at those movements and why the numbers are moving. We know public money is always coming in on teams like the LA Dodgers, the Yankees, right? The public money is getting there, but the sharp money is going on the numbers. They're not looking at the teams, and that's definitely one way you want to bet. And I also encourage people to look at in-game live numbers because the market is softer in those areas. Know the team that you like coming into these games, and then look at the runs, and then look to come back in on better numbers out there. So there's a lot of different ways you can tackle these the books and betting them.
My saying is always, I said, there's a reason why the books will tell you pick whichever team you want for however much money you want, and we'll take the other guy. And they're building these big, beautiful casinos, and we're still sitting here, in our houses and apartments. But there are some people who do very well. You're one of them. The big gambling weekend this weekend with the Final Four coming up. Obviously, UConn with the unbelievable comeback and the great shot by Mullins, and just a great, and everybody, nobody likes Duke unless you're a Duke fan. I don't know who you are, but if you're a Duke fan, nobody likes Duke.
You're okay.
Nobody likes Duke. I'm a Johnny's fan, so they beat us, but we gave them a good fight. I was surprised to see UConn coming in at 2.5 point underdog. Talk to me about that. The UConn Illinois game, the first game up on Saturday at 6:00.
Okay, first I thought St. John's should have got past Duke. I was just so disappointed. Foster coming back in the lineup for Duke. It was so disappointing out there to see St. John's not be able to get that win. But looking at how these games have played out and looking at UConn and looking at their way, they were able to just pull their way back versus Duke. Dan Hurley had that team saying never die, right? In that game, they were down, 15 points at the half, and they fought their way back. And you called it, Mullins with that buzzer beater. It was unbelievable what we saw out there. Now, earlier in the week, we did see UConn as a 2.5 point dog. And I told people then on my show on Monday, jump on UConn because these lines are going to move. They're a public team, yes, but a public team that has every ability to beat Illinois. Illinois coming out of the Big Ten, this team has that elite ability offensively to get those baskets, but I do think UConn's defense is going to be the difference maker in this one. They have the belief in themselves as well, and I think Dan Hurley is the difference maker as well over Brad Underwood, and this is going to come down to a battle of those second chances. And I do think we're going to see UConn getting those rebounds, fighting it out. So if you didn't get UConn plus the 2.5, you can still get them plus 1.5 right now, or plus 1 on some books. So shop it. But I think this is a 64-63 win out here by UConn.
Yeah, I saw them. So you think it's going to be a tight game either way? Yeah, and you think they'll win by point. Hurley's a lunatic. I mean, he's a lunatic, but he's a great basketball coach. You know, he wins. Listen, he does crazy stuff. We saw him put the head bump to the referee, and he's just a lunatic out there, but he cuts down nets, is what he does. And he's looking for 3 and 4 years. He's got these seniors now who are looking for their third title. I mean, that hasn't been done since UCLA back in the heyday of that school. But Illinois, like you said, coming out of the Big Ten, that's a big time. That's the best conference in the country. They have Michigan in there again in the second game. Illinois is going to be tough, but UConn's just so inconsistent. What do you think about UConn being inconsistent? Maybe they come they lost to St. John's. They blew St. John's out by 40, and then they lost to them twice. They did it. They're not a conference winner. What do you think about that? Do you think maybe? Well, you picking a 1-basket game, but tell me about UConn's inconsistencies.
Yeah, so there are. So you're going to need Solo Ball, who can be inconsistent and non-aggressive out of the backcourt to really step up. Like, he cannot play like we've seen him in some of these games. And if he can step up, if Mullins can get those baskets, and I think the difference maker is going to be Reed. You look at Reed Jr. coming into this one, he sunk, 31 points on Furman. He was also able to get a double-double versus UCLA, and he had great performances in the last 2. If Reed can get out there, I don't think Illinois has that big man to really slow him down and stop him. And I do think Reed's going to be impactful on both ends of the court. But you're right, Illinois has the playmakers out here. Wagler coming out has the ability to go on a big run. You also have Caravan, who's the most experienced player out there on the court. He's so smart, 2-time national championship himself. So you're going to look at Illinois. They're going to push in this game, but I think it's going to come down to those final seconds, which head coach makes a smarter decision. And even though Dan Hurley's a madman, I saw that headbutt kind of thing too.
Yeah.
That ref, I thought it was AI. I was guaranteed it was AI for a good 30 minutes. It's like there's no way I just saw that. Right?
Yeah, and I love the people, the Duke fans, and I don't know if you heard it, the Duke radio call after the game. They as soon as Mullins hits the shot, and the Duke radio guy goes, "Oh, he hit it!" Like just like that, no excitement, and then he goes, "UConn's on the court. That should be a technical foul." Like, come on. Tanner Hurley could strip naked on the sideline. He's not going to call a technical foul in that position. Give me a break. But as far as Tyrus Reed goes, he's the best player on the court. He's going to be a top draft pick. And you're right. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. And I think as far as Caravan goes, there's the inconsistency. Look at the last game. He was 0 for 11, but he keeps shooting. Shooters just keep shooting. He hit the big one, which I think besides the Mullins shot was the biggest one in that game to make it a 1-point game. That was the biggest shot. And that's it. That's important. You don't lose confidence. You just keep shooting. Now the second game we got is the marquee game really of the day. It's Michigan. They're a point. I saw them at a 1.5 favorite over Arizona. Good game. Michigan was blowing people out in the beginning of the season by 40 points, maybe even more. Sometimes they've kind of cooled down, a little inconsistent. Tell us a little bit about that game.
This is going to be the best one, right? This feels like it's our national championship game right here, looking at Michigan versus Arizona. And I was shocked to see this wasn't a dead pick 'em here. 1.5 with Michigan you're laying right now. And this one has a high total. It opened at 157. It's now up to 157.5. And I do think this is going to be another tight one. But with Arizona's ability and their depth, I think they can pull off the win. You look at their defense, and their defense is able to draw those fouls. They're able to get to that free throw line, and that's going to be the difference maker. They're connecting on those free throws. Now, this is a team that doesn't shoot up a lot of threes, but when they do shoot those threes, they're connecting as well. And you look at Michigan, their size and their physicality has got them here. I'm not denying how solid this team is, but they had a couple of hiccups. They started off strong, had a couple of hiccups during the regular season, and they've been elite here in March Madness. You look at them, and in the first round, getting past Howard in a dominating style. They didn't take their foot off the gas, 101-80, even though that game was basically done in that second half. And then in the second round, St. Louis, they won that one 95-72. That big win over Bama, 90-77, concerned me a little bit. Not going to lie, because that first half, they came out kind of slow. Their threes were hitting, and that's why in the first half it didn't look so bad when you looked at that scoring, but they were slow in that first half. So if they come out slow at all here versus Arizona, they'll never catch up.
No, I agree, and I think you could almost throw away three of the games, but they really haven't been challenged yet. Like you said, the Bama game was their real, the only challenge closest it's been. I mean, the Howard's not going to beat them in a million years. St. Louis wasn't going to beat them either, and Tennessee didn't. As a Cinderella, they didn't belong there. They just got blown out. What was it, 40 points or something? It was the largest Elite Eight regional final win, I think, in the history, or right up there with one of those. So, I don't think Michigan's been tested, but I do think they got size. They're a good team. They're a well-coached team. And Arizona's tough. Arizona, I mean, it's been a while since Arizona's been there. Michigan, I don't know which way this goes. Do you think this, now a lot of people do you think this is the national championship? Winner of this wins the title?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whoever is winning this game will be cutting down nets on Monday night. And I think with that, you've got to start looking at those lines already, depending on who you think comes out of the other game, because those lines are already posted for the situational shit. So if you think it's Illinois, Arizona right now is a 4.5-point favorite over Illinois. If you think Arizona is going to just win versus Michigan, you're okay to wait on this. But if you think Illinois dominates UConn, you want to grab Illinois right now plus the 4.5. So there's a couple different ways to look at that, right? If you think it's UConn, like I believe, versus Arizona in that matchup, the spread is 5.5. So if you think UConn wins in a tight one, which I think will happen, you're going to have that 5.5 hanging around. But if Arizona comes out and just squeaks past, you'll see movement, right, in those lines. So depending on how you think these games play out depends on if you should bet these now. I do think it will be an Arizona-UConn matchup. You can also bet that matchup to happen versus taking the lines early on this game. But that's where I think the matchup's going to be. Arizona, can they beat UConn by 5.5? I don't know if they can. I think that one will probably be tighter than the number as well. Because you look at the turnaround, you look at the wear on these teams, and you look at how many games they have played. As for a total in that one, it's 143.5. UConn's defense, Arizona's defense. I'd take a first half under between UConn and Arizona.
Yeah, and UConn plays slow anyway. They like to set it up, half-court offense, stuff like that. I'd say be careful. I'd say be careful of the short thing here with the winner of this game winning on Monday night, because it always changes. And especially if UConn gets there, their championship pedigree. Listen, I don't like UConn. Like I told you, I'm a St. John's fan. I don't like UConn. But I'd be careful with betting the winner of this game automatically, or already going for it now before the game's even happened. Me, I have Michigan in my bracket, and I've never, since 6th grade, I was skipping school, come home, watch the tournament, and by Sunday, the first Sunday, my bracket's just a list of teams that have lost every year. I've never won. We'll see how I do this year. I have a chance. if Michigan wins, but it's not a very good chance. All right, let's go now to basketball. In the futures, the playoffs are coming. We got the Knicks here plus 1,600. Do you think the Knicks are a good value at plus 1,600 all the way down there to win the title this year?
Yeah, absolutely. The Knicks at plus 1,600 is where you want to go. Like when you look at those odds that you see, okay, see, you've missed the best of the number. Coming in on them right now, plus 135. If it's a win, it's a win, but you're holding up your money for how many more weeks throughout all of the playoffs for them to be able to get it? I don't think it's a smart bet. Now, I do think the San Antonio Spurs, with how hot they're rolling right now, is a smart bet at plus 550, still giving you some value there at that number because they are steamrolling over teams, winning their last 10. They've got a nice matchup tonight, should make it 11 maybe here versus the Clippers, but I think the Clippers will play strong. But I look at the Knicks, and I think they're a better team to back here than I'd say the Denver Nuggets or the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 1,600. They have every ability to make a huge run here in the playoffs and get all the way to the national championship and maybe get the win here. I hope it is the year for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I hope so. You know what, though? And going back to that graphic, I think the least value there is plus 600 with the Celtics. I think they're way overvalued there with that number.
Boston's always overvalued, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
It's a public team. And I know the Knicks are a public team as well, but the Celtics,
it's been so long.
They live or die by those threes, and if they're not hitting, that team's not getting anywhere.
And you know what? I wish I would have taken the Spurs 3 weeks ago, because the number would have been so much better. They're just rolling. Wembanyama is now unstoppable. heading for maybe an MVP season. He's doing things that like we haven't seen before in the NBA. And the Knicks kind of have had a rough month here. The Knicks over the last 3 weeks, this road trip they just went on. Thank God they got a win last night. But this road trip they went on has been a disaster. There were actually people calling for the firing of Mike Brown with 10 games left. And we saw that in the NHL with they hired. What's his name?
Bruce Cassidy was fired, and John Tortorella.
I wanted to say Travolta for some reason. Tortorella.
It could be Travolta. That would just be so fitting for Vegas,
He
right?
was the second
Travolta.
choice, yeah. All right, so now I got a couple baseball ones around here. I'm a big Mets fan. I'm a Yankee hater, but I know I'm in New York. I know where most of the things go. Talk to me a little bit about World Series and who would be the best value for you to have besides the Dodgers. Dodgers plus 210. Now the other teams on there, what do you think?
Dodgers at plus 210, there's no value, and we know that is the most public team out there on the board, right? The New York Yankees, I don't know if they can get it done. We saw those hitting issues last year. If Judge isn't firing, that team just seemed to not be connecting. Now, the Seattle Mariners are a great bet. Coming in at plus 1,200, they have that pitching staff that has the ability to get them all the way. You're going to look at Mariners games this season to be those lower scoring, grind them out style of games where your first 5 innings are going to stay under. You're going to see those nerfies cashing as we got the strong pitching. But I do think the value, running it back on the Toronto Blue Jays, and I'm biased a little bit here. I am a Toronto Blue Jays fan. But you look at this team and you look at the improvements they made in the offseason and the World Series, how deep they went last year into that series with the Dodgers. It was disappointing to see them go out the way they did with that error. But you look at the Jays, and this one, only Bo Bichette did leave this team, and they added, and I do think they have the ability to make it all the way. They still have some deep bats. You got Vladdy there. Anything can happen.
Oh, I'm so sorry about the World Series last year. We were all we were all pulling for you, and within that much of a play at the plate, of a great catch in the outfield. I mean, it was the greatest World Series I've ever seen, and I've seen probably about 40 of them, where I've been able to remember, and just an unbelievable World Series. And that's why there's no value in the Dodgers, right? Is because the Blue Jays, who came out of nowhere last year, still came within an inch of beating them. And baseball, the Dodgers might get there, but it's a crapshoot when you get to the postseason, right?
Oh, it absolutely is, because when you're looking at tying your money up in futures like this, you take the Dodgers at plus 210. Any injury happens for that team, they lose one of those arms, they lose one of their big bats, and then they have the possibility of not even making it into the playoffs. So anything can happen. I always encourage people, if they do want to tie their money up in futures, make sure it's worth the value. You're looking at something around that plus 1,600 mark, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to have my money tied up that long. The books are just making money off it.
Yeah, and you must be really soured on the Dodgers talking about them not making the playoffs. They would need some pretty serious injuries, I would think. But hey, like you said, it's happened before, and it can happen. And when you're betting something like that this early with such a long distance to go, you have no idea. Anything can really happen. Now, another thing I got for you here is how about home run champion? Who will hit the most home runs in the major leagues this year? There's the odds that I got just earlier before. What do you think about this category?
Again, you want to look at value here, right? You've got Aaron Judge rolling in so strong for the New York Yankees, and he has every ability to get there, but at plus 160, just not worth a shot. I would look at Pete Alonso. We know how solid his bat can be out there, and he has every ability to get it done. He's coming in at plus 1,800, and then Cal Raleigh there of Seattle. I do think you're going to see him hitting some dingers this season, and at plus 2,000, he's worth a look. And then Soto. Those would be the three that I would look at. Juan Soto coming in with really great numbers last season, and I do think he can continue to run it back. So for me, it's Raleigh and Soto for my favorites, I guess.
Yeah, and I think as far as Pete Alonso goes, I think he's going to have a good year this year. I do. I think he's going to hit 35 home runs, maybe 40 home runs. But as far as the future years go with him and Baltimore making that trade and making that signing, I should say, I think it's old. He's old. He's going to get old quick. Home run hitters get old fast. They lose value real quick. And I think they're going to have 2 bad years on the back end of that contract. But, that's a Mets fan speaking. And he didn't come and sign with us. We lost a lot of people. So I'm rooting for Soto in that thing. And Judge,
Okay.
Judge is a great player. He's slumping now. The Yankees are playing well. He's slumping. He'll be okay. He's going to get to the back of his baseball card. Now, a couple other things I wanted to touch base with you. Now, before you started this TV YouTube thing that you do for everything, were you a gambler for a long time? Did you always get into sports gambling? Were you just into sports to start with? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so this industry is everything that I wanted to do for life that I just didn't know until I got into this industry. It's actually really crazy. So, I was an accountant. I had my own accounting firm with several employees. I also had a liquor import business, and I didn't love it. I would give financial management reports telling these companies how they're going to cut costs, how they can't have a Christmas party this year, can't give Christmas bonuses. So against my personality, right? Because they were going into the red. And then after these meetings, I was around the water cooler and I was talking sports and I was talking where like we could bet like different things for like just like Survivor and those kind of bets at that point. And then I was getting more into those like player props and who I think is going to win. At that point, I didn't truly understand, a minus 300 on the money line wasn't a good bet. And then I wrote a huge rant and the rant got picked up. I ended up landing a job in the industry where I learned so much. And as the years went over, I really learned how to bet and how to bet smart. So that's a long story short. It's been a lot of fun.
And what's your advice to people who maybe are kind of on the edge of a gambling problem? Maybe they bet too much. You should never. What do you say to that? What do you say? You should never bet X, or you should never bet more than you have, or what's going on with that? What do you?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. You have to look at sports betting as something fun. It's recreational. It's like going out to the movies for the night. You use that money that you would use like going to the movies. You sit down, watch the game, have that kind of funds on it, whatever you're willing to lose for the night. Never go into a game, into a bet thinking that you're going on holiday the next day because your bets are all going to cash. And yeah, we all like to daydream. We all like to fantasize that those bets are all going to cash, but you can't bet with money that you don't have. And you can't bet with money that you need for your expenses, for your bills. Make betting fun. Make it a part of enjoying the game, but don't make it the whole reason that you're watching the game, or don't make it as an ability to pay off something, to take that vacation, to buy that car. Just always treat betting as extra entertainment on top of the game.
Yeah, and you shouldn't do it. Like the buddy of mine that I'm talking about, and he knows I talk about this, so it's okay. We went. He gets a box at the Garden anytime he wants, right? So we walked into the luxury box through FanDuel. We walked in. He took me to the game one day. We walk in and I look around and I'm like, you got a gambling problem? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, they give me $5. You have this. They give me here's $5. They make a $10 bet. They give you this. I'm like, that's crazy. And he's got the money, so it's okay. But I just thought it was wild the stuff that they do. Now, what's the biggest gamble you've ever made, or the biggest bet you've ever? Have you ever made any big bets that you regret, or anything like that, or any good stories around that?
Oh, well, the best bet I've ever made was a Sunday NFL parlay, and it was every single game on Sunday with those teams straight up on the money line. Now, This was interesting because I had two different versions of it. And the one version went out early, and the second version I thought was done because I thought I had the same team. And I think it was the Tennessee Titans. I think I had the Tennessee Titans to win or lose on one of them, and it didn't cash. So I thought both of the parlays were dead. But for some reason, I went in to check it, and it was the last game of the night. It was the Raiders versus I don't know who, because I had the Raiders and they were a 3.5 point dog. I had them straight up on the money line.
Did you hedge it?
No, my book wouldn't let me hedge. Everything else had cashed at that point, and I was like, oh no, it's coming down to the Raiders. It literally came down to the last play. The Raiders ended up getting the win. But I'm a AFC West fan. I'm a Chargers fan. So I'm like,
oh, okay. I like the Chargers. I like your quarterback. I think he's completely underrated.
Well, Herbert's fantastic.
Yes.
So that was my best bet, right? Like that one cashed, and I wish I'd put more money on it. But again,
you always wish you put more money on it,
right?
you always wish you put more money on it.
Because I tried to put more money on it. The books rejected it. They took that bet and they said, no way, you're not. They limited me to $5.
I'm surprised, because that's not when you're going to win. You're never going to win that. You're like, I think they don't expect you to win that. 15 games or something like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a wild parlay.
Yeah, so the parlay ended up paying just under 30 to 1. So I wished I'd had $100 on it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
That would have been a small new car, but I had $5 on it. So it still
Hey.
was a great day.
It's a good story. It's a good story. Now tell people where they can find you on social media or anywhere else. Let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on all social media at Jo Madden Sports. You can also check out my show on Monday and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. That is Madden on the Line, presented by Crosscheck Media. You can find it on Biz Talk Today TV. But I want to thank you so much for having me here today. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. And we have a mutual friend. I noticed when I was watching his stuff, Joe Ranieri.
Oh my God, I love Joe. He's
Yeah,
one
I
of my
love
favorites.
Joe too. I know him from when I lived in Florida. I used to be a caller on his radio show every day. I'd call in almost every day, and I hung out with him a bunch of times. He's a great guy. I see him now all over YouTube and everything, so I love Joe too. Hey, listen, her name is Jo Madden. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for giving us a couple breaks, and hopefully, like you say, let's make some freaking money, right?
Let's make some freaking money. Thanks.
Well, how about that? Thank you to Jo Madden. A lot of good information there. You catch her, as always, like she said, on the line, presented by Crosscheck Media on Biz Talk Today TV network. She's also all over YouTube, and she's got a large Twitter following, so make sure you check her out there. Follow her. She gave you some good picks on a lot of things. The UConn-Illinois game, she thinks a one bucket game, a 1 point game. The other one, she likes Arizona. I like Michigan, but partly because that's my pick in my bracket, and I needed to win. But other than that, good time. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for coming on. I had a good time talking with you. Hey, she can pick them. She picks winners. She makes money. Why not follow her, right? Why not check her out, and maybe it could help you out. Now, don't forget to check out our coverage of the Final Four. We got the first game of the night for you, the 6 o'clock game, UConn and Illinois. Our broadcast will start at 6 o'clock. It'll be a radio-style broadcast, just like the other ones that we've had. If you've seen them on YouTube, they're on YouTube. You've seen the clips or whatever. We get a lot of people coming in and checking out our radio-style broadcast with yours truly on the call. So check it out. Thank you again to Jo Madden. Check her out. And that's going to do it for us again today. We will have a full preview of the Final Four coming up for you tomorrow. And also we'll touch base with the Mets and the Yankees, everything that's going on with them early here in the season. So that does it for me. Don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. I'm Bob Walters. Thanks to Jo Madden from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See ya!